It all started with a list that shook the streets, a lineup of names nobody expected to see side by side. And right there, carved at the very top, was Big Meech himself, the original boss of BMF, the man who turned dirt into diamonds, the myth who built an empire from nothing but grit and loyalty. But right now? He is furious. Whispers say Meech found out something he could not ignore. Rick Ross, the man who once shouted his name with pride, is now getting a little too comfortable with 50 Cent. And if you know their history, you know that is not just business. That is betrayal. It was never supposed to be this way. Once upon a time, Ross proudly declared, "I think I am Big Meech," paying homage to a man the streets revered. Back then, it felt like respect, like he was keeping the BMF spirit alive while Meech sat behind bars. Ross lived the life Meech once preached, the luxury, the power, the boss mentality. But time changes everything. What once looked like tribute now smells like treason. Because when 50 Cent stepped into the picture, things got messy. He did not just make a show, he built a multi-million-dollar empire around the BMF name, a story that belonged to Meech, his family, his pain. The show blew up, the money rolled in, and the world watched as 50 became the storyteller of someone else's life. But Meech's camp? They were not smiling. They felt robbed, not of money, but of credit, of ownership, of legacy. And when Rick Ross started praising 50's BMF series, calling it genius, the streets went cold. To Meech, those words did not sound like love. They sounded like betrayal wrapped in compliments. Because in Meech's world, loyalty is not flexible, it is sacred. You ride for the family, or you do not ride at all. Behind the scenes, people close to Meech say he felt stabbed in the back. One insider said, Ross was out here talking about being family, acting like he was part of the circle, and then congratulating a man making millions off Meech's story? That is not respect. That is performance. And if there is one thing Meech despises, it is fake loyalty. The streets began to buzz. Twitter threads, YouTube clips, clubhouse rooms, everyone had an opinion. Some called Ross a businessman just playing chess. Others said he had sold out the man who gave him his first crown. The word snake started circulating, and once that happens, it never disappears. You see, Ross claims he did it out of love, out of admiration for Meech's vision, his hustle, his influence on the culture. But to Meech, that love looks different now. Because love does not mean shaking hands with the opposition. Love does not mean popping champagne with the same man who is profiting off your legacy. This goes beyond music. This is about honor. It is about who gets to tell your story when you cannot speak for yourself. While Ross lives free, performing for crowds and shouting, "I think I am Big Meech," the real Big Meech is behind those walls, fighting for his name to mean something more than entertainment. He cannot clap back on Instagram. He cannot go live to defend his story. All he has is his reputation, and that is sacred. So when he sees Ross smiling next to 50, calling his work brilliant, it burns. Because to Meech, this is not just about art, it is about identity. And somewhere in the middle of all this tension, 50 Cent is sitting back, watching the storm he helped create. Calm, calculated. Probably grinning behind the scenes, because chaos has always been his playground. He has mastered the art of making everyone dance to his beat while he controls the tempo. Now the streets are left divided. Big Meech feels betrayed. Rick Ross insists it is all love. And 50? He is winning, again. Because in this game, loyalty can build empires, but betrayal? Betrayal builds legacies that never die. Whether Rick Ross meant to or not, he just walked right into 50 Cent's orchestra, and now, every move he makes, every word he says, is playing to 50's rhythm. The man once called boss of all bosses is now dancing to someone else's drum. And that is exactly how 50 Cent likes it. You see, 50 is not just a businessman, he is a tactician. A puppet master. A man who knows how to turn tension into a stage and chaos into currency. When he once said, "To all my supporters, business owners, hustlers, whatever you are building, hit me now," it was not just talk. It was strategy. Because for 50, control is the currency, and he spends it like a billionaire. In one interview, 50 doubled down, brushing off the controversy like it was dust on his shoulder. "I do not have to explain nothing," he said coldly. "Meech respects what I built. We are telling his story the right way." But just because 50 said it, does not mean Meech ever co-signed it. Respecting the hustle and being cool with the play are two completely different things, and Meech knows the difference better than anyone. Because when you are a legend like Big Meech, your story is not a product, it is your bloodline. Every lyric, every interview, every TV scene, that is a piece of your life being sold. So when others start cashing in without checking in, it does not feel like homage. It feels like someone using your reflection to build their own empire. And that is not business. That is betrayal. Meech has been around too long not to see through the game. He has seen the cameras, the contracts, the fake loyalty that hides behind smiles and champagne toasts. So when he saw Ross and 50 hanging out, flashing smiles for the cameras, talking business like brothers, that was not just collaboration. That was a message. A message that loyalty, in this new era, is up for negotiation. And that is what really stings. Because Ross was not just a rapper, he was supposed to be family. The same man who once built his entire image on Meech's energy, calling himself Big Meech, dressing like him, talking like him, moving like him. The same man who told the world he was inspired by that BMF lifestyle, the code, the loyalty, the empire mindset. So when Meech saw Ross giving props to 50, the same man who turned his life story into Hollywood content, it hit like a sucker punch. It was betrayal wearing a designer suit. Now do not get it twisted, Meech is not out here trying to start drama. He is standing on one thing: respect his name. Respect the foundation. And do not cross that invisible line between admiration and exploitation. Because in the streets, that line is everything. Once you cross it, there is no rewinding the tape. And here is the part most people do not get: Meech does not hate success. That man is success. He built an empire by studying power, by watching the greats, and out-hustling them all. But when you start using someone's name, someone's struggle, and stacking millions off it, you better move with respect. You cannot half salute the man who gave you your blueprint, then turn around and hug his rival. That is not loyalty. That is opportunism in disguise. And 50? He is not playing checkers. He is playing chess. Every move, every quote, every post, strategic. Calculated. Lethal. He knows how to stir the pot, how to keep the streets talking, how to turn feuds into fuel. So when Ross started showing love to 50's BMF show, 50 did not see support, he saw leverage. He saw a moment to make Ross look like he was bending the knee. And he loved every second of it. While this storm brews, Meech is hearing everything from the other side of the wall, through phone calls, through whispers, through the streets. Imagine that. Sitting in a cell while your own legacy becomes content for other people's profit. Watching the same men who once praised you now toast glasses over your name. That is not just disrespect, that is disrespect in a tuxedo. Meanwhile, Ross keeps smiling for the cameras. Acting unbothered. Dropping his usual motivational talk, it is all love. But anyone who has lived long enough in this game knows that silence sometimes screams louder than any interview. You can say no beef all day, but when you start aligning yourself with the man your brother does not rock with, that silence starts to sound like betrayal. Meech comes from an era where every handshake was sacred, every promise had weight. When he says loyalty, it is not a catchphrase, it is a contract written in blood. So when he hears Ross shouting out 50's work, he does not hear respect. He hears excuses. And the internet? Oh, the internet noticed. Within hours, social media caught fire. Comments flooded in, Ross forgot who he was shouting out. Meech built the boss energy, now Ross is selling it to 50. The memes came next. The debates. The reaction videos. The streets were split, half defending Ross, half calling him a sellout. And even though Meech cannot post online, his people made sure his feelings were known. Loudly. Because this was never just beef, it was a generational collision. Two eras of power colliding in silence. Meech represents the old code, loyalty, honor, street discipline. Ross represents the new world, luxury, branding, and public image. And in the middle? 50 Cent, the puppet master, turning street legends into screen legends. Ross probably thought he was keeping peace, walking that thin line between both worlds. But in this game, neutrality does not exist. You either ride with the name that built you or the man who profits off it. There is no both. Because when you try to play both sides, eventually, one side stops respecting you. And right now, Ross is losing the respect of the very man who gave him his boss identity. The irony is brutal. Ross, the self-proclaimed king of loyalty, is now facing the same test he built his empire preaching about. Self-made. Boss talk. Maybach music. All built on BMF spirit, family, loyalty, respect. But when it came time to live that loyalty, the actions did not match the anthem. One of Meech's closest people said it best: we are not asking Ross for money. We are not asking for shoutouts. We just want him to stand on the same principles he built his name on. That is it. No drama. No threats. Just truth. Because in this story, loyalty is not a lyric. It is a test. And right now, Ross is failing it. In the end, it was never about money. It was never about fame. It was about something far rarer in today's world: acknowledgement. All Meech ever wanted was a moment of truth. A simple line. Yo, I got love for Meech and the family. That was it. One nod of respect to the man who made the name mean something. One sentence that could have bridged years of silence and misunderstanding. But Ross never said it. Instead, he built walls, high walls, made of ego, perception, and pride. Maybe that is what fame does to people. It builds distance. It makes the real ones disappear while the noise of applause drowns out loyalty. And those who have been there from the start? They see it clearly. They know something is off. Because BMF was never just a logo or a TV show. It was a code. It was a family. It was a movement born in the streets long before cameras ever started rolling. Family. Power. Respect. 3 things that cannot be bought, not with money, not with fame, not with followers. So when Ross hesitates to give that simple nod, that public thank you, it cuts deep. Because this is not about clout. It is about gratitude. Gratitude for the man who gave the culture its swagger. For the man whose story made the streets look royal. And here is the part that makes it sting, that one sentence could have changed everything. It could have meant the world to a man sitting behind cold steel bars, hearing his name echo in a world he once ruled. One moment of respect could have rewritten the narrative. But instead, silence. Now imagine this, if Meech was free right now, you think Ross would be moving the same way? Not a chance. That energy would be completely different. Because Meech does not do subliminals or internet shade. He is from that old world, where real men handle real talk face to face. No tweets. No interviews. Just eye contact, tone, and truth. But prison bars have a strange way of changing people, not the ones inside them, but the ones outside. When Meech got locked, too many grew bold. They started twisting stories, rewriting history, acting like Meech was too far away to check them. That is the illusion of power, thinking distance equals silence. But real ones know, Meech's silence is not weakness. It is patience. It is calculation. And when that patience ends, words will be remembered, actions will be replayed, and loyalty will be measured. Because even from behind those walls, Meech still moves the streets. His name still commands respect, from Atlanta to Detroit to Miami. Every corner that BMF ever touched still carries his spirit. The younger generation might know him from TV or documentaries, but the ones who lived it? They know it was never about cameras. It was about brotherhood. About empire building from nothing. About watching 2 brothers turn ambition into dominance. Meech's name is still whispered in barbershops, still echoed in studios, still spoken with reverence in every deal that smells like power. His story lives in lyrics, in legends, in those who remember the blueprint. Because Meech did not just inspire songs, he inspired an entire mentality. So when he says he is disappointed, it is not gossip. It is not drama. It is a message. A warning shot. A reminder that legacy demands recognition. People forget, respect is not a currency you can fake. It is not measured in followers or champagne bottles. It is earned in silence, through gratitude. Ross built an empire of luxury and ambition, but that aesthetic, that image, came from Meech. From BMF. From that raw energy that made the world fall in love with the words, boss, and movement. Without that, there is no foundation for today's so-called boss culture. Meech was the source. The architect of ambition. The man who made the hustle look royal. And instead of flowers, what he got was distance. What he got was excuses. And that is what the real ones cannot stomach. Because they see how quick loyalty fades when fame walks in the room. If Meech was home, this would not be an online debate. It would be a meeting, a handshake, a quiet moment between men. But when you cannot defend your name in real time, the world starts twisting it, fast. Still, the streets never forget. Legacy cannot be cancelled by silence. It cannot be rewritten by PR. It lives in the people who carry it forward. You cannot erase that. You can only respect it, or expose yourself for not doing so. And that is what this whole situation reveals. Meech never asked for fame. He never begged for attention. All he ever wanted was a simple gesture of truth, acknowledgement. Because when you have built something from nothing, you do not need validation, you just need honesty. Ross knows it too. Deep down, he knows who inspired his empire. But maybe he is afraid. Afraid that saying it out loud makes his own legend look smaller. Afraid that honoring Meech might make him seem like a student again. But the truth is, acknowledgement never weakens greatness. It defines it. Because no matter how far you rise, you are still standing on the shoulders of those who came before you. That is not weakness. That is legacy. And the real irony? The authenticity Ross built his image on, the real boss persona, is now being questioned because of his silence. The very loyalty that made him loved is now the same silence that makes people doubt him. It is like watching the student pretend the teacher never existed. That is why this moment matters. Because it is not about fame, it is about principle. It is about whether this generation still values the roots that built their success. Meech's disappointment is not anger, it is heartbreak. It is watching someone you once inspired forget the code you both lived by. It is realizing that the new world of fame and filters has made loyalty optional. And yet, even from a cell, Meech's loyalty still echoes louder than most men's freedom. His energy still commands reverence. His story still breathes through every hustler who remembers what it means to build from nothing. Because Big Meech was never just a man, he was a mirror. A reflection of ambition, power, and unity. And no matter how many shows they make, or how many headlines they write, you cannot monetize a legacy that was written in loyalty. If you really think about it, this entire story is more than music, more than beef, it is a lesson in gratitude. How quick people are to claim influence, but how slow they are to credit where it came from. Big Meech never wanted material things. He does not crave fame or money, he already had all of that. What he values now is truth. And truth is simple, acknowledge the real ones while they are still here. Too many people wait until the funeral to show love, until the obituary to post respect. But Meech's story is not over, not even close. His legacy is still breathing through every hustler chasing ambition, through every lyric that mentions his name, through every story that still starts with, back when BMF ran the game. Every letter he sends from prison, every word that leaves his mouth, carries weight, because it comes from a man who lived what most rappers only imagine. His words do not come from envy, they come from principle. From a man who built something real and just wants that reality respected. That is all. Just respect. And maybe one day, Ross will realize that acknowledging the source does not make him smaller, it makes him authentic. The real ones, the ones who grew up under the same code, they are watching how this unfolds. Because this is not just about Meech and Ross. It is about what the game has become, image over integrity, followers over foundation. But the truth? The truth always circles back. Always. And when that day comes, when Ross finally utters that one simple line, "I got love for Meech and the family," it will heal more than a feud. It will send a ripple through the culture, reminding everyone that respect still matters, that roots still count, and that legacy is not something you can remix for clout. Because time can fade fame, but it can never erase truth. Meech's name was carved into this culture long before anyone heard Maybach music. That foundation deserves acknowledgement. That bond deserves a nod. And maybe, when that acknowledgement finally comes, the world will witness what real loyalty looks like, the kind that does not need a camera, only heart. The whole industry hears it, even if they pretend not to. Deep down, Ross hears it too. That is exactly why he has been so quiet. Because if he truly believed he had done nothing wrong, he would speak up, the same way he always does when it is time to defend his name. He would jump on camera, set the record straight, and tell his side. But he has not. He is letting the story breathe, hoping it fades. The only problem? BMF stories do not fade. They linger. They stain. They echo. And right now, everything is standing still. Meech is not declaring war, he is drawing a line in the sand. His message is crystal clear: if you scream BMF, you better mean it. As for Ross, he stands